From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. After a historic win, Mia Mottley will be Barbados' first female Prime Minister. 52-year-old Mottley from the Barbados Labour Party will be sworn in on Friday by the Governor-General. She will be the country's 8th Prime Minister. Mottley is a former Attorney General and a Minister of Economic Affairs and Development, the first woman to hold each of those posts. She unseats Frendel Stuart of the Democratic Labour Party, who governed for 2 consecutive terms. And in a big setback for the outgoing Prime Minister, his party failed to win a single seat. After she was declared a winner, she addressed the supporters at the party headquarters, and she promised Barbados will have a better future.
Barbados, my friends, has always prided itself on the seamless ability to be able to move from one government to another. In America, there's a long interregnum before presidents are sworn in. In our case, that is not so. We get to the task immediately. And that, for us, is good as a small nation. But as we do that, I ask you, our supporters, to recognize that there can be no time for gloating and no time for unwarranted moaning or groaning. We are one people. We are Barbadians.
And according to early results, her party, the BLP, won all 30 seats in the House of the Assembly. This is the first time in Barbados history that a party has won every seat. BLP's landslide victory took the seats from the traditional strongholds of the Democratic Labour Party, including St. Michael's South, which was held by Prime Minister Frendel Stuart. Results came in exceptionally late at nearly 4 a.m. local time, after polls closed 2 hours later than usual. An outgoing Prime Minister Frendel Stuart conceded defeat. He addressed supporters at his party headquarters, saying he takes full responsibility for the DLP's performance.
Success is shared by all those who succeed and by those with whom they are associated. But when there is failure, failure points to one man. And therefore let me unhesitatingly and unequivocally and frankly accept full responsibility for the defeat of the Democratic Labour Party in this election.
These elections were not without irregularities. During voting on Thursday, several CARICOM nationals who were given permission to vote by the Caribbean Court of Justice were removed from the voting list. The Supreme Court held an emergency meeting and gave them permission to vote. This meant some polling stations were kept open 2 hours longer than usual. Some of the ballot boxes also arrived late, creating further delay. Candidates from the Barbados Labour Party also reported being barred from overseeing the count in some constituencies. The Chief Electoral Officer issued a statement explaining the irregularities. The EBC said vehicles and drivers recruited to deliver the ballot boxes had to be redirected because of new voters added to the list at the last moment. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission assured the public that all necessary procedures were followed to protect the integrity of the poll. Now to Colombia's upcoming election, where presidential candidates took part in a debate just 2 days before the May 27 election. The debate centered around electoral guarantees, the respect of the electoral results, and the peace talks between the government and the ELN. Candidates Iván Duque and Germán Vargas Lleras did not agree with Gustavo Petro's call to supporters to take to the streets to defend Sunday's results. They described this as a provocation. But left-wing candidate Petro questioned once again the legitimacy of the electoral system and asked for guarantees on Sunday. Petro's spokesperson Jorge Rojas criticized the decision made by the Colombian National Electoral Council not to check the vote counting software, despite evidence proved by courts that it could fail.
This means that a decision by a judge is being ignored. We acknowledge there have been some steps made for the other procedures, but they are not enough. We cannot be certain that the citizens' vote is finally going to be counted properly and in a transparent way. We are going to watch this process. We are going to have witnesses in every polling station. We are going to check the voting. There is a regime in Colombia that knows how to steal elections. It has been done several times before. The judge has proved it. We do not want this to happen again on Sunday.
Meanwhile, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos insisted that his government has in place enough electoral guarantees to avoid any chance of electoral fraud.
The government has aimed to give full guarantees to each candidate in the upcoming election. Nobody can say that the Colombian government has favored one side or the other. We are giving all the possible guarantees to everyone.
Candidate Gustavo Petro has denounced irregularities in the registry software, the audit process, and what has been accused of being the selection of non-existent electoral jurors.
The president lied. The problem here is that the software presents alterations of algorithms and could lead to electoral fraud. European observers can monitor the process, but they do not have the expertise to make an audit of the registration software. Yesterday, the presidency of the republic deceived public opinion.
The president and the registrar rejected Petro's allegations. However, a few hours later, a video was released where a European legislator confirmed them as true.
We didn't know if there were talks underway with Colombian authorities to take this decision. It's quite unfortunate. Several parties from the European Parliament request for this observation to take place.
In the midst of a discussion about electoral guarantees, the National Electoral Council and the Council of State have taken measures to guarantee transparency in this election.
For electoral truth, it was ordered that the source code and the algorithms will be revealed. This will counter the situation.
They also highlighted the challenges that must be taken into account during the next elections.
We ask that the protocol be applied. If it is working, it shouldn't be changed, but my answer will be to choose juries randomly. That will ease my concerns.
With these allegations in mind, it's vital that the Colombian state makes significant changes that would allow citizens to vote in a free and fair way.
We have to make some institutional adjustments to electoral law. This requires a series of agreements. We have to see how the elected president will help make these adjustments to the law.
Gustavo Petro has declared that without an audit of the software, the vote would be an act against democracy.
It means that the registrar disobeyed a judicial order, and they didn't give guarantees of transparency in the elections.
After these allegations came to light, several presidential candidates have requested citizens to become electoral witnesses and protect the transparency of the presidential elections.
Also in Colombia, social organizations are speaking out against the high levels of danger that young people face at the hands of paramilitary groups.
Social and community leaders have denounced the presence of paramilitary groups in the Bolívar district of Bogotá. The groups are believed to be recruiting young people for drug trafficking.
We have been denouncing this for decades. This is an ever-growing threat to our city. Various armed groups linked to drug trafficking took over the district of Bolívar. So far this year, 34 young people have been murdered, most of them between the ages of 14 and 34.
Local communities said that the situation has been worsening for years.
There are many issues after the demobilization of self-defense organizations led to the rise of new criminal gangs. This territory is being disputed by gangs, which leads to increasing levels of violence among young people. And because of limited employment opportunities, many end up being drawn into this war.
Communities and social leaders not only face a great wave of violence, but also suffer extreme neglect at the hands of the state, who willingly turns a blind eye to local drug trafficking.
This is getting out of hand. The government owes a great debt to Ciudad Bolívar.
Without an effective answer from the state, youth leaders have found other ways to prevent drug trafficking from claiming more lives.
We try to find young people that live on the streets who are using drugs, and we bring them in. We offer art and culture, we have dance classes, communication workshops, we do sports and guide them so that they can have a better education and also better employment.
Youth unemployment in Colombia is higher than unemployment among the rest of the population by at least 7%. That means many of these youngsters have nothing to do with their time.
The first way to combat this is to create an evenly distributed wealth with better productivity, while also encouraging tax policies that decentralize wealth. Inequality is a huge issue in Colombia. We are ranked as the 8th most unequal country in the world and 2nd in Latin America.
For the inhabitants of Ciudad Bolivar, the Colombia state is directly responsible for this situation.
If the government doesn't invest in education, these problems will continue. If the government doesn't offer work and education, people's lives will be worse than they are now. That is the root of all problems.
Local leaders know too well that despite their best efforts, a drastic change is needed. If that doesn't happen, the situation will only worsen.
We'll take a short break, but join us after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Let's go back to that Barbados election story, as we just saw in that last video, to speak to David Denny, General Secretary of the Caribbean Committee for Peace and Integration. Hello, David. What was your first reaction after the results were announced that Mia Mottley won as Prime Minister and that the BLP won all 30 seats?
Well, my first reaction would be what of last night was that I was very happy, and that it tells me that the people of Barbados, they're the ones who have the power in their hands, because they were able to remove the Democratic Labour Party government from power. And then in Mia Amor Motttley's presentation, she openly said that it was not a victory for Mia Amor Mottley alone or the Barbados Labour Party, but it was also a victory for the people of Barbados. So I felt very happy. And all of the progressive forces in Barbados, we are very happy and we are very supportive of this process. And we will now work towards to hold the government of Barbados to its manifesto and to make sure that it do the things that they say they plan to do.
But would there be a problem if there's no opposition in Parliament, as we are seeing with these results?
No, there's no problem, no, because the people of Barbados wanted a change, and the people of Barbados voted for the Barbados Labour Party government, and they voted for all of the candidates. We have political parties in Barbados that are not in Parliament, and they are also part of the opposition forces. So you don't have to be in the Parliament of Barbados to carry an opposition campaign or to being the opposition. What we need in Barbados is for the government of Barbados to do the right things and to look after the people of Barbados.
And that was exactly my next question. What will be the future of Barbados with this new political arena?
Well, we are hoping that the government of Barbados will deal with some of the main issues that are affecting the people of Barbados. In the past, the whole question relating to salary increases for public officers in Barbados, the appointment with security of tender for public officers in Barbados. We have very serious problems related to our transport system. We have serious problems relating to agriculture, and we need these issues dealt with because we want to develop our agriculture industry in Barbados again. We want to develop manufacturing in Barbados again. We want to create the conditions for our youth to be able to become self-employed. And part of the government of Barbados proposals is to create a fund that will allow young men and women to borrow small loans so that they can become self-employed and so that they can develop small cooperative industries in Barbados to develop economic projects that will benefit the people of Barbados.
Indeed, a lot of challenges ahead for the country. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
That was David Denny from the Caribbean Commission on Peace and Integration. Let's go to Nicaragua, where the national dialogue has been suspended as no agreement was reached at the Episcopal Conference.
Dinora is a saleswoman. She sells typical food in one of the busiest streets of the capital. She says she is worried about the collapse of the dialogue between Daniel Ortega's government and the different sectors of society. She says that every day she sells less and can't see a short-term solution.
I'm not against anyone, but the people are hurting too much and it's not fair. Everyone has their rights. People have a right to protest and the government has a law in that they can't do anything. So they have to agree to solve this problem or otherwise people will hurt more than they already do.
Others think that the consequences will be rough for the country's economy, like Ovidio Reyes, president of Nicaragua's Banco Central, who regrets that so far there is no consensus for a peace settlement. He claims that the consequences are going to be rough.
Of course, and that's what we're trying to highlight. Around 58,000 jobs are going to be lost, and poverty is going to rise.
The government confirmed today through a statement that it's willing to embark on a national dialogue to make sure the state's agenda fulfills the people's demands against violence and with a right to work. They are waiting for the call so they can participate in a mediated commission.
The President and the Nicaraguan state are committed to the investigation and the justice assurances around the violence that has been developing in Nicaragua since April 18. They are committed with the consolidation of its institutions and democracy in Nicaragua.
It only remains to be seen what happens over the next days, as those involved announced who will be their delegates of the special commission, so they can resume the dialogue arranged by the President Daniel Ortega.
In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro addressed the National Constituent Assembly after he was presented with his credentials to be president for the next 6 years. His second term begins on January 10, when he will be officially sworn in. Maduro called on legislators to renew their energy and asked their help to change Venezuela for the better. Maduro also said he's ready to begin new dialogues with all sectors of society. During his speech, he invited international companies from Europe, Asia, and the Caribbean to visit the country and build new economic agreements. President Maduro also made a call for unity among the Venezuelan people. Let's listen to that.
Let us listen to the voice and the silence of the people.
Que ha pasado sin sabores.
They've been through tough times.
Con paciencia.
Patiently.
Con conciencia.
Consciously.
Que ha enfrentado dificultades de la
that
guerra.
Have faced problems related to war, economic war, electric war, political war.
In Cuba, another of the 3 survivors from last Friday's plane crash has died. This leaves just one of the 113 victims alive. A second black box from the aircraft has been found, which could mean an important step on the ongoing investigation to find the cause of the accident. Our correspondent in Havana, Alien Fernandez, brings us more.
Last night, 41 years old Emily Sanchez, one of the 3 survivors that was in a critical condition in Calixto Garcia Hospital in the capital, lost her fight for life. She had severe injuries and burns. Doctors had already said she was unlikely to survive. Now, there is just one survivor from last week's plane crash here in Cuba. That survivor is 19 years old, Maylen Diaz, who is in critical condition. Also, related to this plane crash, a second black box flight recorder has appeared, according to the Cuban Civil Aviation Institute. This could be a huge step in order to find out the cause of the accident. During the last few hours, the commission created by the Cuban government to look into the accident has been working both in the lab and in the field, as new pieces from the aircraft are found, which could provide more information on what happened. The Institute of Forensic Medicine has reported that 74 victims have been identified, 64 Cuban citizens and 10 foreigners. One Mexican citizen is still to be identified, and in order to do so, more information has been requested from her family to identify her as soon as possible.
From Havana, that was Alien Fernandez. In Spain, the main opposition Socialist Party has called for a vote of no confidence to Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy. So far, left-wing party Podemos says it will back the call, while Ciudadanos, the party backing Rajoy in parliament, has called for a snap general election. Dozens of people linked to the ruling center-right party were convicted on Thursday of a range of crimes related to the use of an illegal fund that helped finance election campaigns.
This motion is very bad for Spain and bad for the Spanish people. It brings a lot of uncertainty and is harmful to the future of our citizens. None of the members of the government now being put under this vote of no confidence has been convicted. I repeat, no member of that government, and not one who was tried in that court.
La situación que se ha creado,
the situation that has been created of political disaffection, of institutional crisis of confidence on the part of public opinion, of Spanish citizens toward their leaders, has only one person to blame, and his name is Mariano Rajoy.
Tiene un único responsable.
After abruptly calling off talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, U.S. President Donald Trump has now told reporters that the meeting could still happen. On Thursday, the White House had announced that as a result of a trail of broken promises from North Korea, the U.S. called off the summit on June 12th. Kim responded to Trump's cancellation by saying that North Korea was still willing to talk with the United States at, quote, any time, in any form.
No, we'll see what happens. It could even be the 12th. We're talking to them now. They very much want to do it. We'd like to do it. We're going to see what happens. Everybody plays games. You know that. You know that better than anybody.
Ireland is voting in a historic referendum that could liberalize their strict abortion laws. Voters are being asked if they want to change the country's constitution to allow restricted abortion. Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, who has been present for a yes vote, says he is confident that people will vote for the change.
Not taking anything for granted, of course, but quietly confident. There's been a good turnout so far across the country, and so hopefully it'll be yes vote tomorrow. But obviously I'd be encouraging everyone to come out and vote. High turnout, I think, would be to an advantage to the yes campaign.
So let's take a look at what the campaigners from both sides are fighting for and what they have to say.
Ireland's upcoming abortion referendum may be set to change the lives of the nation's women drastically. People across the country will be voting to decide whether to repeal the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, which gives equal right to life to both the fetus and mother. If there is a yes vote, the government will introduce legislation allowing abortion within 12 weeks of pregnancy. It's the first time in 35 years that a vote is taking place which could overhaul one of the world's strictest abortion laws, a decision that has deeply divided the Irish society. In the predominantly Catholic country, pro-life supporters have been adamantly campaigning that unborn babies deserve the right to life.
That we all have a right to life. Nobody would say to vote away somebody else's right to life. It's a human rights issue. The woman and the baby should have the same equal right to life.
I don't want abortion in Ireland on demand up to 12 weeks and then up to 6 months for healthy babies. It's it's a massacre. That's what it will be.
On the other hand, women like Amy Callahan want abortion to be legalized. The pain and suffering of this 35-year-old mother of one is still fresh from her trip to the UK last year. She was pregnant with her second child, but at 22nd weeks, the doctor said the baby has a severe brain disease. She had no option but to travel to Britain to have an abortion.
But when it's you feel like a criminal. You feel like you're doing something wrong. And you just feel so sad. I think we were just so sad and hurt by it, hurt by the whole country thinking that we were criminals.
9 Irish women leave daily for abortions in the UK, and every day 4 women import pills via the internet to induce termination, risking a 14-year jail term. It is a decisive day, which can open a new window for women who want to be in control of their bodies. And the worldwide Irish diaspora are leaving no stone unturned for this historic day. Many are rushing to Ireland from wherever they are to cast their vote.
U.S. film producer Harvey Weinstein had given himself up to authorities in New York, months after he was toppled as one of Hollywood's most powerful producers by scores of women accusing him of sexual assault. He has been charged with rape and several other counts of sexual abuse. Federal prosecutors have started an investigation into the movie producer after more than 80 women, many of them famous actresses, accused him of sexual abuse. The allegations started an international anti-harassment movement which became known by the hashtag #MeToo. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But these and other stories you can find on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.